So today is February 22nd, 2023. If we could start off, if you could please say and spell your name.
My name is Adam Patrick Killermann, Killermann.
And when I ask you a question for the sake of the recording, if you could sort of use my question in the answer, because probably I'm going to be cut out of it. So if I say, where are we right now? You could say, where are we right now? We are, so people know what you're talking about.
Okay.
And we can edit it all out. So please feel free, just talking like we were before.
Okay.
So please tell us, where are we right now?
We're on the grounds of the old Kōloa sugar mill. We're standing next to a haul cane truck and the molasses tanks and sugar storage buildings.
And how long have you been working here?
I worked here 18 years, 1979 to 1997.
What is it that brought you here?
I majored in tropical agriculture at the University of Hawaii and got a job on the plantation.
And what drew you to that major in school?
What?
And what made you want to study that when you were at University of Hawaii?
I wanted to work outside. So I was interested in farming and agriculture. So,
where did you grow up?
Chicago and Florida.
Sorry, what was that?
Florida and Chicago.
So when you came to University of Hawaii, is that because you knew you wanted to live here?
No, I worked construction first on the federal building in downtown Honolulu for about a year.
And then you said, I like working outside, but not in the city.
I had graduated from a junior college. So I took a little time off, worked construction, and then went back to school at UH. I had met some people majoring in tropical agriculture, and so I liked their program, so that's what I went for.
So you graduated from University of Hawaii with a degree in tropical agriculture.
Yeah, Bachelor of Science, tropical agriculture.
How did you make the leap to Kauai?
I applied on the sugar plantations for jobs, and McBryde hired me.
And was that something that was available easily at the college, or did everyone kind of know like sugar plantations were a good place to work?
Well, a lot of people grew up here. They didn't want to work on the plantations.
Why do you think that is?
They grew up here on the plantations, They wanted something different, or they were farming on their own.
I know this is a very general question, but what was your impression of plantation life? You came from Chicago and Florida, you went to college in Honolulu, but coming here to Kauai on a plantation was a little bit different. Can you describe sort of your first impressions of plantation life?
Everybody knew everybody. And there were still a lot of people living in the camps, and so sugar was king, the end of the era. So yeah, it was good times.
What are some of the good times?
Well, just working with all the people and the history and the knowledge and primarily the people.
All right, let's talk about the people. You talked about the camps. So can you describe what was happening on the camps? What did they look like? What was there? Who was there?
Some of the camps were really old and decrepit, but a lot of people lived in them. They were able to save their money, and they probably all own houses now. And some of them were beautiful. Some of them, they had camp halls and places where they could all, have parties, and eventually they started shutting the camps down and providing housing.
Who's they?
The companies.
So who built the camps?
The sugar plantation.
So when people came to work here, they were provided with housing in a camp?
Most of the time, yeah.
And did you get to choose which camp you lived in?
I didn't live in that camp, but no, you didn't get to choose.
So how was it decided who would live where?
I think a lot of them were based on your nationality and what your job skills were and where you were working.
So describe the different camps to me. Like where were they and who was living there?
In Kōloa, I know there was Haole camp, Spanish camp, uh, Portuguese. I don't know if I recall any Portuguese camp, but then there were all camps all around the mill that people lived in. I don't think they were by ethnic, but
That was more by profession.
just no, just worker housing.
And what was there at the camp?
Pardon me?
What was on site at the camp? Like, did people live together in a dorm? with a
No,
bunch
they
of-
were mostly, individual houses, 2 or 3 bedroom houses. Yeah, and a little backyard and gardens and quite nice. Yeah.
And then each camp had like a communal area.
So most of the camps back in the day had communal areas.
And what took place in the communal areas? One of the things we're really interested in is the culture, not so much, also what
Well,
happened.
around McBryde Mill in Eli, there was had actually the Japanese camps had hot baths, communal baths and uh, uh, camp halls where you would have weddings and uh, gatherings.
And that's just the clacking sound we hear in the background. That's just the sugar mill having some say. Yeah. Now, you said you didn't live in a camp. Why not?
It wasn't offered to me at that time.
And what was offered to you?
Nothing.
So, where did you live?
Well, I found my own place, to live. So I did eventually move into a old plantation house that was in Hanapepe Valley, and so that basically it would have been a camp house, but there was no camp.
And how did people interact? You said those were the good days. Sugar was king. Was there a lot of socializing? Did people mix together, or did people kind of stay with their work group or their ethnic?
Yeah, people mixed together. Yeah.
Talk to me about what that could look like. Would it be like for a wedding or just every night?
Everyday life. Yeah, it wasn't regimented. People just.
Was there a hierarchy between the workers?
Well, you had the supervisors and then the upper level management and then the managers. You had the engineers, the electricians, the factory managers and the machinists and all that kind of, and supervisors out in the field.
So did they stick together or did people intermingle?
They stuck together, but they intermingled too.
And was there, was there a certain ethnic group that tended to have certain positions or?
Well, you had a lot of the Portuguese were the frontline supervisors, and Japanese were a lot of. It's just, yeah, Japanese was a lot of Japanese guys were supervisors, and it was their way up, the ladder.
Did they come with the knowledge already? Like, what is it about the Portuguese and Japanese folks that you worked with that made them eligible for those positions?
I think just working from the ground up, for the most part, yeah. Experience.
And what about local Hawaiians?
Oh, there was, it wasn't just Portuguese, there was Japanese, there were some Filipino supervisors, there were Hawaiian supervisors. There was pretty much a mix of what Hawaii is today, yeah.
And how about for you as a haole? How were you embraced or not embraced?
There was no problems. People were friendly. People were open.
Did you ever see problems between different groups?
I never did.
Did you hear about any problems?
No.
When it came to hiring or people getting promotions, did you see any kind of group being favored, or was it truly, work-based, merit-based?
Mostly merit-based, yeah. There might have been some nepotism, but mostly merit-based.
Right. Okay. And then back to the cultural interaction between the different groups. Can you describe a social event where people got together?
Weddings, funerals, birthday parties, just normal living activities.
And was it a practice, like if there was a wedding, would they invite everyone on the farm or on the plantation, or
Well, I think they would invite their coworkers, you know, they're close friends. You know, they're not going to invite somebody they don't know, you know. The field guys hung out, the factory guys hung out with each other. You know, so, but no, you wouldn't invite everybody on the plantation.
who did you hang out with?
Well, the field guys, yeah.
So who were the field guys and what would you do?
Well, they were just all the different supervisors. Uh, Management people.
Can you remember any of their names or where they were from?
Oh yeah, locals, transplants, yeah, you name it. Yeah.
And what would you guys do? Like, was Friday night a night that you guys would get together, or what would be a typical sort of work week?
Every night. Suck them up.
Okay, so break that down for me. What did the work day and then after work look like?
Pretty much everybody went home. You know, once in a while there'd be, you know, parties at the shops or something. You know, usually it had to be an occasion.
So what would a party in the shop look like?
Drink a lot of beer, poo-poos, you know, fish. Uh,
Who did the cooking?
the workers. Yeah.
So you guys would
The-
where would you do the cooking?
Uh, right there, grill steaks, grill fish. You know, some people brought stuff from home. Depends on the party itself.
This was just on special occasions.
Yeah, or Pauhana get-togethers.
What about music? What kind of music would you listen to?
Uh, some guys would sing if the beer was flowing good. So yeah, I don't, you know, there'd be a radio on or CD on or something, but nothing real special.
Do you remember what kind of music it was?
No, just music of the day.
Jawine.
No, no.
I'm trying to also understand again, like how did people communicate with each other? Because people were coming from all over the world. If you could just describe at the time that you were working here, how many different countries do you think were represented by workers here on the plantation?
Well, most of the newer workers were Filipino, so we could communicate. We figured out, or they would talk to somebody, but yeah, it was mostly Filipino. So you had some issues communicating, but wasn't too bad.
So how would you figure it out? Did they speak any English?
They spoke a little bit, and you pick up, words that you would use on the job.
So what are some of those words?
Oh, Bombay. Uh,
What does that mean?
Later.
That was an important word.
Yeah. Hohana means work with a hoe. Pauhana means end of work. Hanawai, move the water. Cut seed. That's pretty basic.
What does that mean?
There were seed cutters that were cutting seed for planting. So, sabedong, which is spraying. I think sabedong is Ilocano for poison or spraying or something.
So
Yeah.
it was a mixture of languages.
Yeah, just like, Pidgin English. So it's a combination of Hawaiian and Filipino and Japanese and maybe some Chinese and chop suey, all mixed up. That's Pidgin English today. Yeah.
And this is where Pidgin came from in Kauai.
Yeah. Like, yeah.
So did you see that? I mean, as you spent years on the farm, did you see the language sort of developing?
No, it was already here. Yeah.
So how did you learn it?
You learn it real quick. When you live here, you learn it real quick. And so unfortunately, there were a lot of Hawaiian words used in the planting of sugarcane, and unfortunately, you don't see those anymore too much.
Why is that?
We're not planting cane, and there's not a lot of Hawaiians working in the where you need these words.
So what would a day look like in the fields? I mean, we're surrounded here by what used to be the plantation, right?
The mill.
The mill.
Yeah.
But around here, was there sugarcane growing around
All
here
around,
too?
yeah. From here all the way from Kaua'i to Kekaha.
Was anything else grown on this land? This land right here,
No.
only sugarcane.
Yeah.
And what would a day in the fields look like if someone was out right here, you know?
It depends what your job was, yeah. So if you were irrigator, you were watering the cane. If you were a sprayer, you were spraying the weeds. If you were a tractor driver, you were plowing the fields ready to plant. If you were a seed cutter, you were cutting cane. If you were a operator, you were prepping the fields and cleaning up. And if you were harvesting, you would be bulldozing and burning and pushing the cane in piles. And if you were a truck driver, you'd be hauling it to this place. And if you were a factory worker, you'd be in this factory processing the cane that we brought in.
How many people total do you think worked on this plantation?
I think when we shut down, we were at 245.
And at the heyday?
Hundreds more than. I think when I started, it was like 340 or 325, and we were able to bring it down by more efficient operations.
What was your favorite job on the plantation?
I liked the water. That's where I ended up. I was irrigation superintendent for 8 years or 7 years.
What was it about it that you liked?
The diversity of, doing the work.
So describe to me what that entailed.
I had 5 supervisors under me. I probably had 50, 60 guys under me. Responsible for all the water operations, reservoirs, ditches, sugar, getting the fields watered, and just.
Can you describe the water system? Was it based on the Hawaii system, first of all?
Well, it was all ditches, yeah, for the most part, and some pipes. Drip irrigation came in the 70s. That kind of transformed us.
So tell me a little bit about that progression. I know that the Hawaii system is a really important part of Hawaiian land management culture. So was that sort of all set up when you came here?
Yeah,
or
it was
for
all
people
set
who
up.
don't know what the Hawaii system is?
I'm not sure what you're calling the Hawaii system.
Well, basically water sharing, making sure that water gets where it needs to go and that everybody has enough.
Yeah, that was the ditchman's job. So, and the supervisor's job. Yeah. So basically we had water coming in from the mountains. We had wells, we had mill process water. We had to process this water that was after the sugar was washed and processed. Surface water in the reservoirs, and then managing the water out of the reservoirs. And then drip came in, and one guy could irrigate 10 acres a day if he was good, and now one guy could irrigate 600 acres a day. So we were able to reduce our manning, increase our efficiency.
And what was that transition like from the system before to the drip system? Did it require new equipment or new knowledge?
Everything, new equipment, new materials, plumbing, PVC parts, PVC pipe, filters, drip tubing, engineering, lots of engineering, basic, moving the water from one place to the other, maintaining the water so it's clean, because we had to maintain that water in the drip tubes for 2 years. So it was a 2-year crop. So it was really important to keep the drip tubes open
And this was all knowledge that you acquired here, or did you bring that knowledge with you?
here. It was basically the Hawaiian sugar industries. Drip started in the 70s, and by the time it was done, Hawaii had over 250,000 acres in drip across the state. Maybe not much, a couple 100,000, maybe, yeah, around 200,000.
Do you know how that impacted water resources island-wide? I mean, was more water having to come to the plantations?
No, water didn't change. It's just the distribution of it changed. The efficiency changed. So, not, I think 250,000 was maybe 175,000. Trying to add up all the plantations. Yeah, so 250 is a erroneous number, I think. But so we were able to increase our yields, reduce our labor costs, thereby allowing us another 10 or 15 years of staying in business.
Just by changing this water management system.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. And then I've also been told that the Y system, the ditches, the irrigation, this system that you're talking about, all of this was working, but then the county came in and wanted to do something about how the water was being used.
No.
No. Okay,
No.
correct me. Did the county have anything to
No,
do
the
with?
county had nothing to do with it.
So the ditches were already here.
They were done in the 1900s. The main ditches and intakes, yeah.
And there were Germans in Kōloa in that time. Were they the ones who, with the Chinese labor, who designed the ditch system?
They were all in-house, you know. They had engineers and sat at a desk with a, I don't even know what the word is, the slide rule and you know, survey equipment, and they had huge survey engineering departments.
Each plantation.
Each plantation, yeah.
Right.
I think what you're looking at on the plantations is plantations were pretty much self-sufficient except for maybe some of the heavy process equipment in the factories and the trains and locomotives and stuff, but they were self-sufficient. They had their own dairies and their own farms and their own clinics and doctors and engineering and dairies. And they had, you know, pretty much they were all, you know, butcher shops, plantation stores, you know, the whole self-sufficient.
Is that the way the plantation model started? Knowing that it needed to be sort of a almost like its own little village, or did
Yeah,
it develop
think,
into that?
I think it basically started that way because, you know, we're isolated. We're not, you know, everything came in from a boat. And so you had to become, you know, they grew their own food. You couldn't, there were no Costco's. There were, you know, so everybody, you know, some of the staples probably came in, but everything was produced here.
So tell me a little bit about the farms on the plantation.
Well, by the time I started, most of the farms were gone. Either they were leased out for cattle or, but they had, you know, and then everybody pretty much grew a lot of their own food in their little camp houses and living areas.
So what kind of food would they grow?
Vegetables and chickens, and you know, some guys had pigs, and you know, the whatever you needed, yeah.
And right over here, I'm pointing to where the old Kōloa regenerative farm is, like right across the street here.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell me exactly what was there when you were working here? Well, you're still working
Sugar
here.
cane, just cane, and an airstrip. So Sally's farm is right along the airstrip there. And then we used to fly fertilizer on back in the day
And what was the fertilizer used for?
for the sugar cane to make the cane grow.
Do you know what kind of fertilizer was used?
Usually a nitrogen potash mix.
For the health of the soil, was there anything done to rotate the crops, or what kind
No.
of farm practices were used like that?
Well, sugarcane was a 2-year crop. So they would plant it and then uh, grow it. After about 6 months or something, the cane would close in, and then it would get, it would grow for another 18 months or 24 months, and uh, so, and then at harvest, the fields would open, and they would either ratoon or plant over. And ratoon, you could plant a sugarcane crop and then ratoon it for 2 or 3 crops. And ratoon would mean the shoots would come back up, and you would shape the lines and do whatever you had to do and start the crop without planting seed. So you could regenerate the crop itself. The crop itself would regenerate. So some areas closer to the mills, they would put the mud and cane trash in, but not not as a general practice. Uh,
So after ratoons, then if that wasn't
you
happening,
would have one plant and 2 to 3 ratoons, so that would be like a 6-year cycle before you would plow the fields up again.
and then after plowing, what would happen?
Then the cane would start growing, and then in 6 months it would close in. You would still have to water it and take care of it, but you couldn't get in there anymore because it was too closed in already. Yeah.
And you said there was a word for seed cutter. So what was seed cutting? Or cut seed?
Cut seed, yeah.
Yeah. What did that entail?
So when you planted a field, you took a piece of sugar cane about this big and you stuck it in the ground and covered it with soil and watered it and fertilizer. And that's how the cane started. So you had to have the seed cutters cut that cane.
Okay, so they would cut a piece
They would go
of
to a
cane.
field that was 9 months old or 8 months old, and the cane would still be erect and standing up straight. And they would come in early in the morning and cut 2 or 3 tons a day by hand,
Each piece about 2 to 3 foot long.
about 18, 19 inches long.
Okay.
And then it would be treated with a fungicide or hot water treatment and then brought to the field and planted.
And what
And
was the purpose of the fungicide or the hot water treatment?
improved germination. So
And this knowledge, like how to grow sugarcane, that wasn't something that was here on Hawaii before. So where did that knowledge come from?
well, they learned the hard way, you know. Yeah, it was. They've been growing sugarcane in Hawaii over 150 years, so uh, they learned. And then there was a organization that was started. I don't know when exactly. It was called HSPA or Hawaiian Sugar Planters Association. So then they started doing all the basic research on varieties and herbicides and ripeners, and they had a factory section that they would help the factory people harvest or improve their factory processing stuff. So, and that was supported by all the sugar companies. So every ton of sugar we had to donate so much money to HSPA, and then they had scientists and people working there in Honolulu, and
And the vision was to keep these plantations going.
right.
So can you talk a little bit about how did that vision change? I mean, we have a pretty good knowledge of the history of the
The vision
plantation.
never changed. It's just the reality changed. You know, burning. People were grumbling about burning, urbanization around the areas. Uh, Sugar, one of the most political crops in the world today, still is. Um Unionization, wages, whole, environmental problems. The whole range of what to do to kill an industry.
Can you talk a little bit about the environmental impact of the sugar plantations?
Well, you had dust, you had smoke, you had uh, not too many ag chemicals, herbicides. Uh, we didn't use insecticides because we were able to develop natural or biological control of some of the insect pests.
What was that? What did you
Well,
develop?
they introduced tiny wasps that hit the borers and stuff, so it was able to allow us to not have to worry about insecticides.
So wait, the boars.
Cane borers are like a moth.
Oh, so
Yeah.
not a boar, not like a wild pig.
Well, that too, but cane borers were the caterpillar would go inside the stalk and chew it up and cause it to sour. And then the pigs would go in there looking for the caterpillar, and then it was just a vicious cycle.
So
So,
what was the solution?
well, we had that biological control, so there was it wasn't feasible to spray insecticides.
Why not?
Just too difficult, too expensive.
I mean, you had the airstrip.
Yeah, but it wasn't worth it. We got control with biological. It kept the population to a sustainable level.
I mean, before sugar was, oh, I'll go back to that. Sorry. I have so many questions I want to ask you, but we were talking towards getting towards the demise of the plantations, and you said sugar is so political. Can you just speak very briefly about what was happening politically here that
Well,
impacted the
so
plantations?
the sugar was price supported by the U.S. government, so we were sugar was imported sugar came in. They put controls on imported sugar, raised the price to about 18 cents a pound. That's where we were. At, towards the end, we couldn't. Our costs were too high. We couldn't even stay under that limit. So we supported governments in Latin America, Central America. We'd rather have them growing sugar cane. Sugar. Europe was a big problem. Everybody supports their farmers, and Europe they grew sugar beets and uh, for their internal use of sugar. And say a country like France needed so many tons of sugar, but their farmers would overproduce. So then they would take that sugar and dump it on the world market, and then we couldn't. We in the world market nobody could produce it for the price that it was on the world market, but these countries that had surpluses were just dumping it to get rid of it because they already paid their farmers already. So that way that even today the price of sugar is I don't know how anybody can do it. So
So the writing was on the wall.
pretty much, yeah.
The people could see that this was not going to be sustainable. Was there ever a conversation about keeping these plantations going with other crops?
Yeah, we looked at a lot of different crops. McBryde did. We planted all the coffee for Kaua'i coffee. That was McBryde. We looked at tea. We had 100 acres of tea. We looked at patchouli. We had 500 acres of mac nuts that were knocked down in the hurricane. So we tried. So
And then at what point did the decision be like, we're not going to grow anything at all?
I think it was a financial consideration. Yeah. Stop losing money.
Right.
Shut it down.
And how did that impact these hundreds of people that lived here in this community that had really been created?
It was difficult, but people found jobs eventually, hotels and you know, different. The corn guys moved in, and so there was a lot of opportunities with the corn guys for a while. Um,
So at the same time as the sugar plantations were winding down, the tourism industry was picking up.
I think it was already up. Yeah, tourism was up. Was it before? It was sugar, pineapples, military, tourism. And now it's, you know, tourism, military, and then diversified ag all grouped together.
And corn. Has corn been grown in Kōloa
Yeah,
in this area?
yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that story?
Uh, it was seed corn, a high value crop, still is today. So there was an opportunity. There was before the corn was here, but they were in marginal lands because the sugar guys wouldn't give up their good lands for corn. So then the seed corn industry was really big for a while, and it's now back down a little bit, but a couple thousand acres around Kōloa, Lehui, all in corn, different times of the year.
Who is growing that corn now? Do you know?
There's Corteva, and then there's Hartong Brothers. So there were a lot of conglomeration, or companies merging together and stuff like that. So it was great for a while.
What was great about it?
Lots of opportunities, lots of jobs for people, high-paying jobs, higher than sugar. Different equipment. Just a whole different animal.
And what time frame are we talking about?
10 years ago.
And has that kind of petered out?
It has a little bit, yeah.
Why?
Once again, Hawaii's a very expensive place to grow. So, I think it was more merging with the seed companies merging together, becoming bigger, but getting rid of different ones. So, yeah, and then the cost, the land costs, the input costs they're still quite high.
Who actually owns this land that we're
Grow Farm Company.
Pardon me?
Grow Farm Company.
Grow Farm Company.
Yeah.
And who owns Grow Farm Company?
Steve Case.
Okay. And so who makes decisions about what happens on the land? Do you know what that process is?
Primarily the people at Grow Farm.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
So they're sort of managing it.
Yeah.
And do you know what his vision is, or does he have anything that he's
I think
supposed
they're trying to keep it in ag for now. There's no way you could develop everything at once.
And what kind of ag now? I mean, we've gone through the sugar plantation phase. There was the corn, you said a little diversified ag. What's the vision now for this grow farm land, including Sally's property, right, or the land that she's farming right there?
I think the vision is to, keep it in ag one way or the other. So people like Sally would be important. If you go to Lehui, we have a lot of Thai farmers and different smaller farms, 20-acre farms. So, yeah, keep it in ag. We need ag. Yeah, I think Grow Farm's vision is they're building a commercial kitchen and to help with the secondary, value-added products, and so they're committed. Keep the water flowing, keep the land in production.
Is part of that because to sort of build Kauai's self-sufficiency? I mean, I think we all saw
I think
during.
it's all, tying into that.
Can you speak to that a little bit? We
No,
really
I
got to
don't.
take.
I don't. That's a big word, sustainability. Kind of a catchword.
What does it mean to you?
Talk.
Well, these crops that we were talking about before, the vast majority, if not all of them, were for export, right? They didn't stay here.
Yeah.
So is part of the idea of sustainability that there's food needed on island, instead of shipping all the food in and shipping all of our grown food out, is to grow some of our own food here?
That's a good point. Yeah. If we can do it.
So
But you need people to work the fields. You need capital. You need You need the workers in the schools that run the cafeterias willing to buy the food instead of opening up a can and putting it in the pot. It's very complicated. I know Ron Kochi's working hard on it, trying to get schools and the hospitals to buy food locally.
Who is that?
Our state senator, Ron Kochi.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a long push. It's not an easy one.
Right. It's one thing to say, yes, we want to be self-sufficient, but
Yeah.
then it actually involves everybody.
Mm-hmm.
Well, one of the things that this project is interested in is hopefully some young people would be interested
Mm-hmm.
in working the land. What would you say to young people today that might give them an inspiration like you had to be out here working on their own land, on their own island?
Not sure about inspiration. It's just super hard work and, you know, uh, somewhat fulfilling. Yeah.
Well, what's fulfilling about it?
Well, it's just being able to be self-sufficient, to make money, to feed your family, to hire people. It's not an easy process. So it's really difficult. And especially with the laws in Hawaii and the labor laws
Right, right. We're not talking about like child labor.
no, we're just talking,
Maybe
labor
like the
laws.
next generation.
Yeah.
So the next generation of farmers, what would your vision be if you were kind of starting over again and idealistic and filled with hope? What would you say to yourself? What this person you are now with all your experience, what would you say to that younger part of yourself that was, really wanting to be part of this agriculture movement here?
I don't know if I would be. Yeah. Um, it's just people don't understand ag. It's super commitment, super hard work, lots of obstacles in front of you from, you know, having a nice crop and then seeing a flock of parrots come in and destroy all your hard work, or, you know, having the pigs come in and destroy all your work. And, it's just really difficult. It's not going to be easy for anybody. So if you're willing, it's available. If you're smart, there's opportunities, but you got to really want to do it.
What are some of the opportunities?
Well, to be successful and your own boss and uh, outside doing what you want to do and trying to improve stuff and testing different varieties, and it's just a commitment. Uh, it's more of a commitment than anything.
What's helped you stay committed?
I'm not sure I'm committed, but
Still here.
yeah, yeah, I'm just uh, opportunities. You know, the plantation shutting down and a new house payment and 3 young children, and what are you going to do? That's what you. That's the obstacles you face. So that's what I tried to do. Face all the obstacles, and I don't have to worry about it too much anymore. So
It sounds like that it's a constantly shifting environment, but there's always opportunities too.
yeah, you got to find a niche, and it is constantly shifting, one industry to the other, to dealing with farmers that can't speak a word of English, and trying to help them move along, and uh, yeah, it's difficult.
So I'm going to shift gears and talk a little bit about Hawaiian traditions since we are in Hawaii. So were there any Hawaiian cultural traditions that were practiced on the plantation then or now?
Just blessings before harvest and after harvest, and that kind of stuff.
Tell me about that. Who would do the blessing and what
They
would
would
it?
have some church member come and give us, you know, a blessing to have a good harvest or a good run at whatever we were doing. Um, I'm not sure about Hawaiian traditions out there.
Can you sort of paint the picture for me of this blessing ceremony? Who would be there?
All the workers would be there, the management, the office workers, everybody would show up usually, and they'd have a blessing, and it'd either be a start of harvest or end of harvest. And, they have food and a little celebration and stuff like that.
What
Just
kind of food?
local food, you know. Wasn't If it wasn't real serious, just poo-poos, some fish, meat, whatever. Yeah,
Is it
poo-poos.
something that people would look forward to?
It would be the start of the season, so yeah, it was. I don't know if we'd look forward to it, but it was one way to start it.
And who would do the blessing?
What do you mean? They'd have a minister or somebody come out and throw some water and salt around and pray and give us a
What
wish.
language did they pray in?
Hawaiian, yeah.
Do
So
you know what the prayer said?
no, I didn't know.
Would there be a record of that somewhere?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, so there would be this ceremony at the beginning of the season, and then at the end of the season?
It depends. Sometimes there was, if it was Pauana, Pau harvest gathering. Some were very informal, some were formal.
Can you describe an informal one that you attended?
Yeah, it's just all your co-workers sucking them up, um, talking about the past harvest or whatever happened, or just real informal.
And what was the value of that to you?
It's just the camaraderie and just getting, being with your friends and your workers, your co-workers.
Would you learn from each other, you think, in those times, like hearing the stories of what happened in the
I
fields?
think you learn some things, what not to do, or how we came out alive, or something to that effect.
Was there a feeling of relief at that time of this harvest?
The harvest, yeah, at the end of the harvest, yeah, because usually we're in this time of year slugging it out with the weather and rough conditions and rain and mud, and so it was rugged. So everybody looking forward to the harvesting ending, and hopefully we made our sugar quotas and stuff like that. So
And then what would happen? The harvest ended, and then what would
we would go into off-season work.
which was what?
Whatever we couldn't do during the regular season, repairing equipment, getting ready for the next year, planting the fields that were not planted yet. Uh, Usually harvesting would take off faster than the planting crews. So harvesting would end, we had a lot of acres to close to get planted before the harvesting started again. So repairing ditches and repairing the irrigation stuff and cutting trees, and
So the full staff was kept working.
pretty much, yeah.
What was your favorite time of the year?
I didn't really have any favorites, yeah. Just
Okay, least favorite.
I think the difficulties of harvesting in adverse conditions was rough.
Can you tell like a specific story of just your nightmare day out here?
Well, you would go to a field and the mud was this deep.
So
And
up to your hips.
yeah, you couldn't even drive through it. The only thing you could do was have a machine pull the trucks in and out of the field, and a big bulldozer, just pulling them out till they could get to hard ground and going and wiping out the fields, and it was not pretty.
So you had bulldozers actually moving trucks
Yeah,
through the mud?
yeah,
I'm even
pulling
trying.
pulling them or pushing them, just to get through.
And then once you got out there, what would the trucks do?
Come down here
Oh,
with the cane on them.
I see.
Yeah,
I see.
yeah,
Okay, so getting the cane from the field to here
yeah,
in the trucks,
yeah.
in the mud.
In the mud, and the roads were busted up from the rains, and these trucks were huge, heavy trucks.
Did people ever get injured?
Yeah,
What were some of the injuries you saw?
crashes, people, pretty serious crashes. Yeah,
And how would they get medical help?
911.
It
Yeah,
wasn't so long ago.
no, it wasn't that long ago. Yeah.
Okay. Um, Back to Hawaiian cultural traditions. Do you know if there's any heiau or any other sort of sacred places to Hawaiian people on the Grow Farm land?
Yeah,
Where are they?
I'd just rather not talk about them. Yeah,
Is there access to them? Or
no. Some of them there's access to, but yeah.
can you talk about those?
I have access to them. I don't know if the general public doesn't have access to them.
And how are they treated? What's the policy?
They're just generally they're just rock piles.
But is the policy to leave them be
Yeah,
or
yeah. You don't want to be the one touching a hail.
why not?
Not good. They're religious. They're spiritual to people, so we just work around them. Never bother them too much. So
And is there any kind of ceremony that takes place at the heiau today?
there probably people walk in and do things with them. We don't, you know, they walk in and do whatever they want.
Oh, so there is
Well, I
access.
mean, it's not, oh, we're going to the hail today. People, if they want to go, they can walk in, maybe.
Is there some kind of agreement?
No,
No. It's I know that that's something that can be a little bit touchy, so I'm not trying
no,
to,
there's no agreements.
right. It's just
Some
whoever.
are along the coast, so you can just walk to them. So
So it's really up to people if they,
yeah, if they even know they're there.
but
Most
it's
most of them don't know they're there.
and it's not something Grow Farm is doing anything about,
No,
just leaving
yeah,
as
just
is.
they were always left alone for the most part.
Right. Okay. Okay. I'm going to just check my notes here. Um, so we had talked a little bit about the culture of bringing everybody together. You talk about the chop suey. So could you say that there was people that came here from different countries, different cultures? Was there sort of a new culture that arose from bringing all these people together? There's the Hawaiian cultural and traditions that were here that predated the folks that came to work the plantations. All these different people came over. How do you think that has affected Kauai's culture or contributed to Kauai's culture today?
Um, I think there's cultural traditions that are here today. Like take your shoes off when you go into a house, and uh, maybe stuff we don't even know is attributed to the plantations. So, uh, you know, cooking food together, and different recipes from different cultures. So I
What
think,
kind of recipes come to mind for you?
uh, I'd say like smoked meat is more like maybe a Portuguese tradition, or you know, blood meat, or danang danang is the Filipino one using you know, the hog blood, different, you know, Japanese, you know, recipes, you know, all chicken katsu and, you know, all different kinds of chicken long rice, you know, kind of a mixture of them all.
So we got pigeon from the plantations. We got this. I mean, now when you see Hawaiian food, you see chicken katsu, you know, you see smoked meat.
Yeah. Yeah, you see lao laos and, you know, Kōloa pig, but Kōloa, you know, some of them were more for celebrations, you know, feed a lot of people.
And is there some value that you were able to see of people coming from different backgrounds, you know, instead of having just from all one place? Was there a value to the diversity of the people who came here?
Yeah, I mean, if you're into the different diversities and cultures, yeah, I think nice to experience them and taste the different foods and cultural traditions and
And even for the working of the farm, did it help to have people from different places? Did that
uh,
somehow, like, did the knowledge get shared? Because sometimes people came with farming knowledge.
yeah, there was probably some transfer, but primarily the sugar guys had their way of doing it, and there could have been variations on, you know, smaller things, but it was, you know, heavy physical labor and then mechanization. Out in the fields all day with a hoe, pulling weeds, you know, kohana, you know, it's hard work. So,
Break time.
yeah,
Were there any like trees planted here for people to take breaks or little crop
there were no
areas?
trees, firewood. People had their own little hot water heaters and stuff. There were very few trees. Trees you see now are, they weren't here, or they were used for firewood. If you look at the old pictures, you see very few trees. Didn't know why.
And that's why.
Yeah.
No need shade during the day. Need
Well, you needed shade, but most of the like like the banyan trees were introduced for watershed reasons. This plum tree here was introduced.
so the banyan trees were
It,
introduced for what reason?
protect the watersheds up in the mountains.
How does that work just very simply?
Well, there were no trees, so the watersheds were depleted. So plantations used to plant trees up, you know, up in the mountains to protect the watersheds.
How does that work? I don't understand the science behind that.
Well, you have bare dirt or you have trees growing to soften the impact of the rains, hold the soil.
So the plantations actually planted
The
trees
plantations did a lot of tree planting,
where there were none before.
or maybe where they were before but had been used up.
And was that plantation on land?
Yeah,
So each plantation had land up into the mountainside
usually for
for
the
the
water.
purpose of the water.
Yeah,
And this plantation had land up into the mountain?
mm-hmm.
Which way?
Mountains.
Black
Yeah,
Mountain, the
yeah,
Haupu.
yeah, that way and around. Yeah.
So there was a specific job of maintaining the trees up there?
No, they would just plant. Maybe that would be an off-season job.
Okay. And then you said the plum trees were
Well, a
introduced?
lot of these trees were introduced. The Chinese banyan was introduced. A lot of them are rogue trees, like the Schefflera here, Opiuma here, right over there. That's a tree from the southwest. What else do I see here?
And they were all introduced for the purpose of protecting the watershed.
Some of them were introduced for the watershed protection. Some of them were just, these have call it the choke plum. So you can use that wood for smoking meat. And the pigs like the fruit. That's the purple one. And then you can eat them if you like really bitter. choke plum, they call it. Not very tasty.
And did they ever use trees as windbreak?
Huh?
Did they ever plant trees as a windbreak?
Some areas, yeah.
Because it's so windy here.
Yeah.
So how was that handled?
It, sugarcane was a grass, so it didn't, it wasn't really needing a lot of windbreak. I mean, it
So
helped.
note to future farmers, grow crops that can grow in the wind.
Yeah. Or plant windbreaks.
Yeah. Okay. I know this has been going on. I'm asking you question after question. How are you doing?
I'm okay so far.
You okay so
Yeah.
far? Okay. Is there anything that you would like to add or
No.
any stories or
No.
stories you heard tell?
No.
Yeah.
Really.
Okay. That actually reminds me of the topic of Christianity, because of course Christianity is such a huge part of modern Kaua'i culture. Were there churches or was there any kind of religion practice on
Oh
the
yeah.
plantation?
There was Chinese churches and then the Buddhist temples and some of the camps had their own Honwanjis and ministers would come from Japan. Still do today. So yeah, it was all that was there.
It sounds like there was
So
religious
if
freedom.
you driving towards, there's two Honwanjis right there in Hanapepe. One of them was moved from the plantation to that spot there.
And the one in Kōloa town,
Yeah, there's still one there. Yeah,
that's where it always was.
yeah,
Did it serve this plantation?
yeah, yeah.
That's
There are actually two there. One is now a coffee shop, and then the other one is still Honwanji.
and was there, I mean, were people free to practice the different religions
Yeah,
or
yeah.
was there pressure to be Christian or
Always pressure to be Christian. Yeah, I don't know.
and then when there started to be children around, was there schooling or education provided through the plantation?
Not sure about schooling. I think the public schools, there were public schools then.
And back to Ash Wednesday, were Christian holidays observed on the plantation?
Uh, Easter, Christmas, Good Friday. It wasn't. No, I don't think so.
What would you guys do for Easter and Christmas?
Well, it was usually Sunday and Christmas. Yeah, nothing. Everybody was off. New Year's Eve, New Year's Day. Those are the big holidays. 4th of July. Yeah, just now you have newer ones, but
So was there 4th of July, I know is bigger holiday for some people than others. But what would 4th of July be like? Did everybody celebrate it or were they
yeah, everybody
happy?
was off. Usually the plantation would pick a day and we'd shut down for the holiday. Well, you had Jack Holiday, which was the union guy, and that was like New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. There was a holiday in there so that was basically a union holiday for the plantation guys.
Who's Jack Hall?
He was one of the founders of the ILWU and the organizations that laborized or labor unions.
And how was that day commemorated? Like what were the
Day
traditions?
off, yeah,
So Jack Hall Day, that would be a paid day off.
yeah. Usually around the New Year's,
Uh-huh.
somewhere in there. I think.
Okay. And other plantation-wide holidays?
That was about it.
And Christmas, like was there a Christmas bonus or gifts given out to the workers?
I think that, bonuses were given out if we made money or, but once you started getting the unions involved, there was not many bonuses. Maybe the supervisors got a small bonus or something, but not the workers.
Anything else around the holidays? Because I have okay, so when we were speaking inside the sugar mill, you said that, at first I think a lot of the workers were male workers and there was dorms and then women started to come. right?
Mhm.
Picture brides and so forth. How did you see the arrival of women affecting the culture?
This was way before my time.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, so I wouldn't even have a clue how to answer that.
So by the time you were here,
Just in the 70s, it was, you know, there weren't dormitories and men living in dormitories. That was all gone.
and men and women working together,
Yeah.
what's the percentage you'd say, gender breakdown?
Maybe 8 to 10% had with maybe a little higher. We had a lot of women in the fields still, in the office. Maybe that high. I don't know.
Still a pretty low percentage.
Yeah, a lot of women wouldn't want to work out in the fields. You know, it's hot. You get brown skin, and you're dark skin already, and you want more. They don't like darker skin, so prefer the hotel room or you know the office.
Okay, let me just scan. Hmm, okay. Okay, just a little bit more about the water system. So before or in the late 1800s, the ditches were built. So I'm going back to the Kaua'i system a little bit more, just to talk about that, because I know that's something that you've worked a lot with. How did it impact the farms in Kōloa before the plantations were here? I know this goes back before your time.
I don't know. I don't think there were farms here. There were Hawaiians that were farming, but that was before the plantations, and one of the largest pre-contact water systems was right here in Kōloa. They call it the Kōloa field system.
Can
So
you tell me what that is?
they were able to take water from Waikomo Stream and send it to Kukiula and to Kōloa. And they had basically it's over lava fields down there. And they built up the ditches and transported the water and grew all kinds of crops, sweet potatoes and taro and uh, pigs. And when the whaling boats would come in, they would line up with fresh water and fresh food and take off. So it was quite it's a major irrigation system.
And when you say they, who built that?
Hawaiians.
So were you part of that reservoir being built
No, that
or
was built in
used?
the 1915 or something. Yeah. All these reservoirs were built then.
And how did you utilize it?
Water for the factory, water for the fields.
So the water would come from where
The
into,
rain.
oh, okay. So it wasn't diverting water from
There
other,
are subdiversions, but basically it was rainfall initially, and then diversions were built to get more water in.
and how did that impact surrounding areas?
I don't think it impacted them too much. Might have impacted some people downstream of some of the diversions, but then by that time there wasn't a lot of agriculture going on.
And so now all the hotels that are down here, because that's the major industry, where are they getting their water?
From the ground.
And the reservoirs are not being used anymore?
They are being used, yeah.
Oh, they are?
Yeah.
In what way?
Irrigation.
Oh, so they still being,
Yeah.
what are they irrigating?
Different crops around, corn, Sally gets her water from the reservoirs and yeah.
And that's your
Golf
job.
course, um, some corn, cows, whatever, whoever, chickens, whoever wants water, we got it. That's why we're here.
So that's your job.
Yeah.
So do you make decisions about what water goes where? Or are you just told to put water?
I'm pretty much make the decisions. I mean, this is Farmer Joe here. He needs water. Okay. I'll figure out how to get it to him and when he needs it or whatever.
Are there any issues? Are there,
Always issues.
so what are some of the issues around water right now?
Maintenance, and the systems are old. So in Lihue, we have a lot of farmers that the systems were utilized for different crops. So, when the corn guys came in, they needed, when we put our fields in for sugarcane for drip irrigation, we had a different row spacing. We went from 4.5 feet or 5 feet to 30 inches. So, all kinds of different complexities like that. Filtration. Right now, there's not a big demand for it. So, but come summer, everybody's crying for water, and Lihue, there's a big demand for water because Lihue is a water short area.
And so they get water from Kōloa?
No, totally different systems. Yeah, every system was different. Every plantation had an irrigation department. And they also had hydroelectric power plants too. Well, yeah, they all compared notes. Yeah.
Informally, or would you have like conferences, or
We had conferences. Yeah.
what did you learn from someone else?
What not to do.
Like what?
You know, just don't make the same mistake that this guy made, or like Mr. Pfluger on the North Shore filled in the spillway on the reservoir, and then the reservoir filled up and broke and killed 7 people. So stuff like that. The old days that they built the reservoirs pretty well. I'm fairly comfortable with them. They're all over 100 years old, but they were built well and maintained for pretty much, and uh, so. But stuff is 100 years old. Shit happens. I don't know when that was built, but it was. I can tell you, it was probably built by the plantation. I brought an old engineer in here, and he looked at the beams, and look at those. Those are from the 20s.
So back to I'm curious about the Hawaiian irrigation system that had been developed. Did you guys tap into that at all?
No.
Is water still flowing through that
No.
system? No.
No.
So how did that get short circuited, or why?
I don't think there were farmers farming it, and Hawaiians, a lot of them passed away from diseases and stuff like that, and it took probably a lot of discipline to keep that thing going.
So just natural attrition.
Yeah, I guess you'd call it that.
And then
it was only discovered when they built Keahuna villages. They did archaeological studies. What is this? What is this? Oh my goodness, this is huge. Called the Kōloa field system.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I would look more into that.
Yeah. So pretty much took water out of Waikomo Stream and all the way down Kukiula, and as far as the water could go this way, all
Right.
gravity fed. I worked with some of the archaeologists when they were doing it, digging them with a backhoe. You could see the layers of, it'd be like solid lava, and they would build up the ditches with rocks and mud and get the water flowing over the lava fields. Pretty amazing.
Yeah, so what struck you about it? Did you learn anything from it?
Yeah, it's just they were clever. They knew what they needed, and they probably all had to work together to, and then if a big flood came, they could close the gates or whatever they used. So they had the Poipu Sun. They had their fields. A lot of their fields were just built on lava fields out there. Kōloa is primarily shallow soil areas, even Kukiulas, and kind of centered around the stream and Kōloa Landing. And the boats used to come in and fill up with food and water, and off they went again.
So they understood their environment.
Yeah.
What would you say to modern farmers about how they could learn in the same way that the native Hawaiians did about this environment and how to take care of it so it takes care of you?
Just do the right things, you know, take care of what you got and keep it clean, and, you know, soil erosion, and don't waste your water, and, you know, recycle stuff, you know.
How to deal with soil erosion?
Yeah, plant plants that will hold the soil down. But, you know, you get a 4 or 5 inch rain, nothing, you know, it's tough.
So, what I'm hearing you say is that it's not just about taking from the land, it's about taking care of the
Yeah,
land.
you have to take care of it.
So, how would you say that in, like, was I understanding you correctly?
Yeah, plant cover crops or windbreaks, or uh, just try not to have open land, open areas.
There's the practical. Sorry, what were you going to say?
Yeah, that's all. Just
And then, even just like from a philosophical standpoint or almost a spiritual standpoint, like taking care of,
yeah,
what would you
just,
say to that?
you know, you take care of the land, it take care of you. So yeah, try to anyway.